So not to completely bury the lead here, but two quick things that I was going to mention before this video became solely about Vegas. Sidney Crosby is still a freak, and Tuukka Rask getting headshotted. You know, some people see it as, it's Carlo's fault. Some people are like, nope, definite headshot. And then the NHL is like, no, we don't know anymore because we're the NHL. My understanding was this, is that even if you didn't intend to do something, if you still did it, you still suffer the consequences from it. That is not the case in Emil Bemstrom hitting Tuukka Rask in the head and likely giving him his third concussion in the past 3 years, I do believe. Anyway, Peter DeBoer is the new head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. Gerard Gallant has been fired. Yeah, this is... Now, I have said it's been a weird start to this year for me over the past 2 weeks, and there have been some things where I'm like, am I dreaming? Am I in a coma? There's no way this can be real. There have been quite a few things that have made me say that. This is one of them. I am convinced, as if life might not already have been a simulation to begin with, I am convinced that I am living in either a simulation or a coma or something, because... the hell, man. Gerard Gallant gets fired. Now, Vegas right now, not exactly where they would want to be. They are currently outside of the playoff structure in this league. 54 points in 49 games, so Winnipeg and Vancouver are ahead of them because of the 2 games at hand. And, of course, we talked about Nashville, firing Peter Laviolette. They could easily catch up to Vegas. I mean, they're 5 points back with 4 games at hand. That's not that bad. It's another team firing their head coach when they're outside of the playoff structure, when they clearly expected to be in a top 3 spot. The problem is Vegas is literally 1 point out of a top 2 spot in that division. 1 point out. Now, the bottom line is you'll see articles like this a lot, but in terms of the underlying numbers, in terms of expected goals for and everything like that, it's just Vegas is on a bit of a down stretch right now, and the goaltending has slipped. And because of that, they're outside of the playoff structure. And this team makes one of the biggest knee-jerk reactions I think I've ever seen as a hockey fan. This might top the list. You fire Gerard Gallant midway through his 3rd season with the team, because you've only been around for 2.5 years. You fire Gerard Gallant. I mean, yeah, the playoff disappointment last year, the controversy against San Jose, and the 5-minute major and everything, and then losing in overtime. But then this. We're going to be able to look back on the first few years of the Vegas Golden Knights, and it's going to be fascinating to see how they handled going about building their team. Of course, taking deals like the deal from the Panthers to get Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault. We're going to be able to look at how they built this team through that expansion draft. And then some of the trades that they made, the Thomas Tatar trade really comes to mind. Some of the signings that they made, acquiring Mark Stone and signing him for $9.5 million, acquiring Max Pacioretty, which is still insane. You look at the moves that they've made, and of course it was already a talking point how within 2 years, you look at their current projected cap space, it's gone. Everyone thought it would be a little bit more of a slow and steady approach, and then the first year happens, and what a 2.5 years it's been. There's already so much story to tell with this organization, so much to look back on. And this is just another chapter. Like I said, literally 1 point, a game at hand for both Edmonton and Calgary, 1 point out of the playoffs. I understand the Peter Laviolette firing, even though Nashville has games at hand, I understand it. This is one of the biggest knee-jerk reactions I've ever seen, to the point where Elliot Friedman even mentioned they were talking about an extension earlier this year. The second part to this, aside from the fact that they fired Peter DeBoer, or that they fired Gerard Gallant, is that they named Peter DeBoer their new head coach. The same Peter DeBoer who the San Jose Sharks fired 34 days ago. Which, coincidentally, John Hines was also unemployed for 34 days after being fired by the Devils and then signed by the Preds when they fired Peter Laviolette. Of all the coaches, now, it's a gigantic joke that this league only has 32 coaches and that it's just revolving door. Obviously, you end up getting guys in from the NCAA into head coaching roles, but of all the coaches to sign, hell, Peter Laviolette's available, and you went with Peter DeBoer. I just don't know. I mean, like I said, you're upset that the team is underperforming, and then you bring in a head coach who, yes, did get to the Stanley Cup final in 2012 with New Jersey. They lost. Yes, he got to the Stanley Cup final with San Jose in 2016. They lost. I'm not saying Peter DeBoer isn't a good head coach, but 34 days out of a job, and then you bring him in from San Jose. Or, from the unemployment office, I should say. It is one of the most bizarre moves I have ever seen. And the question now is what the hell happens with this team? Because, again, you do have some underperforming players. I mean, injury-wise, you're relatively healthy. Cody Glass is the only guy that's out right now. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury not exactly killing it as you would have wanted. And again, that's kind of the main reason as to why this move happened in the first place. It really is a bizarre situation to try and break down. And how this is going to work out for Vegas, for better or worse, is going to be extremely interesting to find out. But again, for all of the potential options that you had out there on the open market, you go with Peter DeBoer. Just outright head coach, not even interim. He's our guy. Again, to be a day one Golden Knights fan, what a roller coaster. Just to be a hockey fan and to watch this team, it's been a roller coaster. And then you have to wonder, because we knew heading into the Vegas expansion that it was a different set of rules. The NHL was going to try and make this team, or at least give this team the opportunity to go down a couple of different paths that would still set them up for better success out of the gates than you had with Atlanta or Minnesota or Nashville. You look at how those teams, Columbus as well, you look at how those teams struggled out of the gates. It is kind of a miracle that Columbus and Nashville are still around when you look at how bad some of those teams were. Minnesota, they were able to put it together pretty quickly. You had the 2003 playoffs against the Colorado Avalanche. They retired Patrick Waugh. But then you look at Atlanta, and it just didn't work. You look at, the Coyotes were a relocation, so that helped, but you still see how much they struggled in their new location. This has been so bizarre, and the impact that this is going to have on Seattle and how they choose to go about things once they're in the league. I can't wait, because again, once you get to 32 teams, you're probably done. The NFL hasn't even expanded beyond 32 teams. And once the NFL expands beyond that, it'll take the NHL about another 15 years or so before they're like, oh, we could do that too, because that's how the NHL works. So I'm just enjoying this as a hockey fan, because this is going to be a time that we get to look back on and just be like, what the hell was going on in this league? You look at, again, everything surrounding the Vegas expansion and how this is going to affect and impact the way Seattle goes about things. And then what the hell that team's going to look like through its first 2.5 years to 5 years, then 10 years. It's a very interesting time. But Peter DeBoer is the new head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. What can you even say What can you even say to that at this point? Gerard Gallant fired. I mean, the taxi cab jokes are back out in full force. But to be 1 point out of a playoff spot, yes, you're 3 points behind the division leader in the same amount of games played. Like, I get it. Like, if you're Vegas, you fully expect we're in that number 1 spot right now. That is absolutely the expectation. We are the number 1 team in the Pacific, hands down. No question. And that's a fair expectation to have. If you're Nashville, at the very least, I mean, that's the goal, but you have very stiff competition. You're at least wanting to be in a wild card spot, and you were a bit behind the pace, so I understand the Laviolette firing. Although, shout out to Minnesota and San Jose for making my early season predictions for who was going to make the playoffs look pretty damn stupid, but that's okay. God, Anaheim sucks. Anyway, I don't get it. Again, a lot of your underlying numbers are tremendous. I mean, again, the bottom line is it comes down to save percentage, 25th. You just haven't gotten the goaltending that you're used to getting from Marc-Andre Fleury. You've had a little bit of bad luck lately in terms of the offense just not being able to finish chances. And because of that, you make this unbelievably, breakneck change. I mean, yeah, you lost to Buffalo, you lost to Columbus, you've lost 3 in a row, 4 in a row. You've lost 4 in a row after winning 2 in a row to start the month. You have 3 games left before the All-Star break. I mean, it's Ottawa, Montreal, and a very inconsistent Boston team right now who's going to be without Tougie Rask. I don't know. And in February, you have a very, very competitive schedule. As if we didn't have enough interesting storylines to watch this year. You look at all of the coaching changes. I mean, you just look at these teams in general. Washington doing as well as they are. Pittsburgh's a very interesting story because, again, they were surviving without Crosby. Now they get Crosby back. He has an amazing game. The Islanders are still interesting because you look at the change to Robin Lehner leaving. They're still doing incredibly well. Barry Trotz, as ever, that reliable defense-first coach. And then again, you look at Boston now without Tuukka Rask. Tampa, yes, they got shut out by Louis Domingue, or lost to Louis Domingue. I think it was a shutout. They're still surging. Toronto, very interesting team to watch. Morgan Riley goes down to injury. What the hell is going to happen there? Carolina hanging around in the playoff spot like I think a lot of people expected. And then again, from there, it's just a slugfest. You have Philly, still overly competitive. Again, the comeback against Boston, the Marchand incident, which I didn't talk about on the channel because, yeah, it's fucking hilarious. And it's hilarious that it happened to Brad Marchand. Columbus, Elvis Merzlikins has back-to-back shutouts. The Panthers have playoff aspirations. And then you get everybody else where, Buffalo kind of hoped they'd be there. The Rangers, I still think it was too early for them to be there with that defense core, even though someone like Tony DeAngelo's really stepped up this year from an offensive standpoint. Montreal, a bit worse than people expected. New Jersey, definitely worse than people expected. You have Detroit going for the ultimate tank, which is very dangerous in this lottery-driven world. You have Edmonton and Calgary in a playoff, first-round playoff matchup if the season ends today. The Coyotes acquired Taylor Hall. Winnipeg's hanging around despite their defense core being obliterated. No Dustin Byfuglien, no Tyler Myers, which some Canucks fans might be like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, the Nashville struggles. San Jose being one of the most disappointing teams in a long time. It has been such a bizarre season already, and we're only in mid-January. And what comes next after this, I don't know. But I am very excited to find out. If you enjoyed the video, you know the deal. Drop a like. Let me know down in the comments what the hell you make of this, because I don't even know. Shout out to all my patrons over on Patreon. I love you all. I will see you guys next time, because every day is a new adventure in the NHL nowadays.